to beat my high score.
Hey everyone, Genome here, catch you with the next episode in my Hack and or Slash series, the series where I take a look back at horror franchises of old and just horror movies in general, at least in the days of my youth, and see how they hold up to today's standards. So, those of you who've been watching as of late know that I have been reviewing the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And seeing as I left off with Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, well, it only stands to reason that I have to come up against the brick wall of the series, the coup d'etat, if you will, the more like coup de grace of the series, and that is none other than 1991's Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare.
Freddy's Dead. The final nightmare. They've saved the best for last.
Now, for those of us, wise to such things, of course, this wasn't the last, but it was technically intended to be the last. There wasn't even a cliffhanger or anything at the end there. It just cut, basically. So, yeah. Everyone knows about this movie. And those who have seen it and lived to tell the tale never want to see it again.
Both repugnant and disgusting.
But hey, let's go ahead and give this movie a shot and see what I think about it. So let's go ahead and do some quick plot synopsis and introduction to characters, and then I will get on to the pros and cons of the movie, and then give it at the end toward a final rating. Spoiler alert, there will be spoilers all over this. There is sort of a twist in this. It's pretty obvious, but there is still a twist. So I don't want to ruin that for you. So if you've never seen this and actually have any interest at all in seeing this, heaven forbid, you might want to pause this video right now, go watch the movie, then come back, and then finish up and then see what you think. But yeah, so there will be spoilers ahead, so fair warning. So yeah, 1991's Freddy's Dead. This was directed by Rachel Talalay. I'm probably saying her name wrong, but she was basically an assistant producer basically throughout the series. She's been involved with the Nightmare series for a long time. So she should, and by should, I mean should, have an idea of what the fans want.
Oh, that's sarcasm. That is awesome.
So let's see if they gave it to him. So, all right, so we start off in a nightmare sequence, all right? Hey, 100%, right? For all the movies, you always got to start a nightmare sequence. It's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So, start off in a pretty cool one, actually. It's in a plane. And, the guy's getting more and more nervous. Things seem more ominous, and then he starts falling. He's basically ejected out of the plane at cruising altitude.
It's not fair! I was almost out!
It's pretty impressive. It's actually kind of cool. And since a lot of people have fear of falling, it only makes sense that it's actually finally incorporated in the series. So it's kind of starting off good, right? Starting off kind of cool. We are treated to more of the initial nightmare sequence. And that bleeds over into the main credits, or the title credits, right? So here comes one quick problem. Remember how I said there was a 41-second, this number is, it's funny because it happens again. There's a 41-second scene in Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, where the dude walks like 10 feet from the backyard gate to this basement window, right? It just drags and drags and drags. Well, in this one, there's a scene where our main protagonist, John Doe, played by Sean Greenblatt, falls down a hill, and he's falling. And he's falling. And he's falling some more. Just he does a lot of falling, right? I timed it. It's 41 seconds yet again. Were they paying homage to the most useless scene in the second Nightmare film? Who is to know? But anyway, he finally gets to the bottom. And we're treated with some more surrealism, and this is where the problems start.
Got a bad feeling about this.
So Freddy is back. You can tell right from the get-go that he is in full comedic mode because he's just busting out the one-liners already. He's laughing like a loon and an idiot. And as playing the bus driver man, right?
No screaming while the bus is in motion.
So he launches John out of the dream world into the real world, where John promptly bashes his head against a rock and gains convenient amnesia. So, okay. This is right off the bat, we have a lot of problems here. First off, this movie plays fast and loose with the rules, right? For one, like, there's a lot of bleed over from the nightmare realm that Freddy inhabits to the real realm. There's a couple of scenes in the movie where people are doing things in the dream world, they're doing the exact same things in the real world. You know, physics be damned. It makes zero sense how this happens. There was actually some precursor to this, though. I remember in Dream Warriors, I remember Elm Street 3, there was a scene toward the beginning where the guy who's getting puppeted, basically marionetted to death, he actually walks through a door into the real world, I think. It's kind of hard because it cuts back and forth a lot there, but that's how it appears. So I guess there is some precedent for it, but this movie takes it to the extreme. And so yeah, he's launched out of the zip code, and you know, Freddy walks over to the comically human-shaped hole. And obviously he can't pass through this. He has a boundary at Springwood. Okay, so that scene alone also bears a little more mentioning because this is another recurring theme in this movie. I think the writers and the producers and the directors had some sort of strange fixation with like Looney Tunes humor. Specifically Looney Tunes. It's so strange in this movie. Like, you'll see like the cartoon human-shaped hole, like things like that. There's scenes later on where Freddy's behaving like Wile E. Coyote. It's just so juvenile and sophomoric, and I don't know why they have to do it. But anyway, more on that later, but there's more of that to come, unfortunately. So our guy, who is now conveniently amnesiac, don't get me started on this, John Doe, doesn't know his own name, that's why we call him John Doe, never do find out either. Freddy has let him go on purpose. He's the last. We find out here at the beginning that he is the last of the children, period, in Elm Street, or teens, whatever. But Freddy lets him go, and then he has his line there. He says, be a good doggy and go fetch.
Now be a good little doggy and go fetch.
So let me go ahead and spoil the plot for you right now.
What? Oh no!
Freddy had a child. We learned a little bit more about Freddy's backstory in this movie, which that part I kind of liked, right? So Freddy had a child that was taken away from him, and because basically he killed his wife, who had discovered what he was doing in his basement. I guess he was doing stuff in his basement. Like she discovered his claw collection and who knows other creepy stuff he had going on there. But basically, Fred doesn't like to find out the fact that she found out, so he offs her in front of the daughter. Yes, daughter, not son. So this John Doe guy comes to believe that he is Freddy's son. And that's what it kind of seems like when Freddy lets him go. It doesn't make sense now, but if you see it, the movie, it'll make more sense as they release more information later on. So he's sent out to fetch. To fetch who? We don't know yet. It sounds like he's just wanting more children, right? But there's actually more to it than that. But here is the plot. Plot in like 10 seconds. Freddy takes John Doe, the last surviving Elm Street youth, period, sends him out on a quest to find Freddy's daughter, bring her back to Springwood, so Freddy can jump into her mind, her body, whatever, and be transported beyond the barriers of Springwood so he can start hunting anew.
That's just about the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
That's the plot of this movie. He never tells this John Doe guy who to look for. He never tells him what to do. He just flings him out of the dream. So it looks like John should be like, hey, I'm lucky, I'm out. He let me go for some reason. And now he shouldn't be able to he can't even exist anymore. Freddy is stuck in Springwood, right? More on that later, right? But I guess John can dream about him outside, and does that bring him over? But he can't introduce him to new children. It never really says here. But now he has amnesia. Okay, so let's take the first part. He's sending John Doe to get Freddy's daughter. Freddy's daughter, by the way, is played by Lisa Zane. Her name is Maggie. Man, if only all social workings that guy just looked like her, I might have committed myself a long time ago. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, assuming that he had told John any of this, and he didn't, what are the odds that she's basically living in the next city or town over? Apparently she is. Okay, high odds to begin with, right? When he has memory. Now he has complete amnesia. He doesn't know anything about himself, where he's from. He has some news clipping in his pocket or whatever. That's how they find out where he came from or whatever. But this is Freddy's plan. Freddy's plan is to send this kid out with no information out to anywhere on the planet. She could be anywhere, in hopes that he will find her and bring her back to Springwood. That's what he's hedging on right there. He does. Of course he finds her. He finds her because the cops drop him off at, basically she works at like a youth center, and she's a therapist or a psychologist there. It's not really completely spelled out, but he does find her. This does move the plot going. It moves it on and sets up for the big twist toward the center of the movie. But this is his plan. This is the movie plot that they gave us to work with, right? This is the leap that the audience has to make. The movie doesn't give you a whole lot of time to sit there and ponder this, and it's probably for the best, but I mean, that's in essence what's going on. Look at some screenplays that were submitted. There was some really kooky stuff out there, and some interesting one. Peter Jackson himself, yes, Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame, right? He submitted a script for this movie, believe it or not. And guess what? It sounded very, very cool. It had to do with, since I don't know if Freddy had killed too many of the children, whatever, or whatever the fact may be, Freddy was grown weak in the dream world. So weak that the youth of town would have like drug-fueled parties where they would take, sleeping pills or whatever, go to sleep, and beat the crap out of Freddy in his dreams and torment him. Eventually, he winds up accidentally killing somebody, and he's able to get his mojo back, and things progress from there. But what a cool concept that would have been, and a whole heck of a lot better than what we got. Because what I just told you is basically, this whole movie is, they should call it the quantum leap, and I mean, you have to like be in the quantum level of physics to kind of comprehend the intricacies of this plot. Actually, it's not intricate at all. It's just completely stupid. But you have to make so many leaps in logic here that I thought I'd throw that bad pun out there. So, yes, John Doe meets Maggie in the halfway house, and we're also introduced to basically the only other 4 people that are important in this movie at all. That's Tracy, played by Leslie Dean. She is so over the top in this role, it's ridiculous.
Hey, look at her go! You are sexy when you sweat.
You ain't getting none, Carlos.
You sweating?
You ain't getting none.
We have Carlos, played by Ricky Dean Logan. Basically the only character that I cared about in this movie. I did like his portrayal, and he seemed like a genuinely likable guy. I kind of dug Carlos. And Spencer, the last of the youths, played by Breckin Meyer. His trait is he's a stoner. So basically the 3 of them have one singular trait. Tracy is got some sort of repressed trauma, but she is con brio, right? She's a she's a badass. She's Xena warrior princess, right? So she's constantly attacking everyone, either verbally or physically. Carlos is apparently deaf. He just wears a hearing aid. And it was apparently done because of abuse from his mother. We find that out in a dream later on. And Spencer is a stoner. His dad put him away for whatever reason, because he wants him to be like him. That's what it sounds like. So looks like dad has money, shows up in his suit to berate him and all that. But so yeah, Breckenmeyer's just a straight up stoner, and he also has a very convenient side hobby of building explosives and arming himself. More on that later.
No more running away, no more setting his cars on fire.
Well, there are other ways to get his attention besides blowing up the garage.
Yeah, he barely even blinked.
And last but not least, and rounding out the this cast of married characters, is Doc, played by Yaphet Kotto. Yes, Yaphet Kotto of Aliens fame and maybe Running Man fame. That's more like infamy, but yeah. So he's there playing basically another very convenient role. He is some sort of therapist at this facility, and hey, guess what his hobby is? Dreams and dream therapy and all that. So yay.
These are ancient dream demons. Supposedly they roam the dreams of the living.
So after we meet our little merry band here, Maggie is trying to get to the bottom of who John is. So in order to jumpstart his memory, she decides to take him back to his hometown. They've somehow gleaned that he's from Springwood because he had that clipping in his pocket, right? So he knows he's warning everyone he can't go to sleep. And when he does go to sleep one time in the facility, it doesn't turn out too well. He has a sleepwalking nightmare, right? But anyway, that's just filler. So they go back to their hometown. Somehow the other three people we met have snuck aboard this decrepit old van that belongs to the facility, right? And they tag along for the ride, unbeknownst to Maggie and John, right? But of course they're found out around the town limits. And then more hilarity ensues. We're treated to, because they do more investigating, so we're treated to a fair, a town fair. No children. There's no children in this town. We're treated to a schoolhouse. There's no children in it.
This is where they took away his child.
What child?
Taken away, put in a town orphanage.
Freddy had a kid.
We're treated to an orphanage with no children. So all the adults here have some sort of mass psychosis. This was all alluded to at the very beginning, which I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of this video. But it was all in a really high-tech kind of foreshadowing piece of this movie right here. So yeah, all the parents are completely psychotic, and this also starts some of the cameos in this movie. First cameo is by Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr. Wow, just amazing stuff here. They wasted so much time and money on these stupid cameos when they should have been working on some other parts of this movie. But yeah, they're all just nuts. All the adults they meet are nuts. But here's where it gets even more fun. So those three stowaways in the van, Maggie, the one supposed to be in charge, the therapist, the state worker, or whatever, she says, go home. Get in the van and go home. She's very upset with them, right? So she's like, sends them off by themselves in this van. Trusts them to go home. They ran away from the home, right? This is her plan. This is how much planning people do in this movie. So she sends them on the way. They have no way to get around town. They're walking everywhere now. So Maggie and John Doe are walking around town talking to these crazy people. It's just so stupid. So Freddy apparently has some sway in the real world in this town because the kids are driving around. They can't seem to get out of the town. It does set up the first dream sequence for the new kids. Kind of an interesting one, actually, where Carlos falls asleep in the van and has some map issues, right? All right, that was bad at pun, too.
What is this?
So, they drive around circles for hours and hours. They can't get out of this town. So they decide to go hole up in some house and sleep until tomorrow, and they can try to find their way out then. So they go up to a house, looks like it's for sale, go in there to go sleep, and it transforms. Remember, that's the fulcrum now for whatever reason. And so we know the kids are in trouble, so they all go in there and sleep. Carlos is the first to go. He goes up and enters into the first of the really surreal dream sequences for these guys. So Freddy's back to being ironic again, so we know that it's going to have something to do with Carlos's hearing. So first he pretends he's Carlos's mom, rams a Q-tip that's a foot long through his head, knocks out his hearing aid on one side, cuts his other ear off that has another hearing aid in it, and off we go. So Carlos is now effectively deaf, and this is where Freddy gets to play hijinks on him and mug for the camera because he's dancing around and acting like a complete idiot, trying to be funny for the audience because Carlos can't hear. And there's no other reason for it because Carlos can't see him, doesn't know he's back there, but he's out there, doing stuff so people in the audience can laugh. I'm sure no one was, but it was there. So Carlos has actually a pretty creative kill. Freddy gives him back his hearing aid, and it grafts itself to its head as some sort of creature, and it seems to amplify sound to ridiculous levels. A drop of water is like agony to him, and then Freddy starts dropping pins and stuff off the catwalk wherever he's above him, and basically just toying with him. He's especially cruel in this one, actually. He is in most of the kills in this one, but he's really cruel in this one. And then he wounds up bringing out this, supernatural chalkboard, and he starts scraping the chalkboard with his claw, and this just overloads Carlos and basically causes his head to explode.
No.
And at the end of this, it gives Freddy a chance at one of the stupendous one-liners in this movie.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
Oh yeah, there's plenty more where that came from. So before I reviewed this movie, I reached out to another content creator on YouTube, Derek's Horror Corner, and I was because we're both fans of the genre, and we were going over some of the details of this movie, and I asked him what his favorite part of this movie was, and he said it was the scene with Carlos's hearing aid, the explosion of said head. So yeah, I thought it was just kind of funny that wound up being the best. So some kills in this one are creative, but most are pretty lackluster, but there are some inventiveness to be had here. So, yeah, for those expecting a departure from the one-liners of the last couple of movies, no. And they're not even trying to be dark anymore. They're just one-liners, right? So, one down, next one to go. The stoner dude keeps getting stoned, and he falls asleep and goes into a psychedelic trip for a little while. And then he winds up in possibly the stupidest, scenes in the entire series. This is not even possibly. This is the stupidest scenes in the entire series, where Freddy really gets to act like a 12-year-old and starts playing video games with Spencer as the guy on the screen.
Jump, boy. Whoa! Jump.
Freddy, makes all kinds of freaking video game puns and
Great graphics.
And jokes at Nintendo's expense.
Now I'm playing with power.
And he even breaks out the infamous power glove. Get it? Freddy wears a glove, so when he has a controller on his glove, it turns into the power glove.
Come on, John.
Get out of here now, Tracy. Now.
Hey, you forgot the power glove.
Brilliant. But and basically he runs back and forth with Spencer and basically sends him to his doom in a very strange ending kill. Makes him fall down a pit. Whatever. But this is another series of scenes here where stuff that's happening in the dream world happens in the real world. And this is where it gets completely ignorant. Spencer starts jumping around like a pogo stick all through this house, right? complete with these freaking ridiculous Looney Tunes noises. And just the ludicrous things that it has him doing in the dream world, like he's walking around on a dervish dish or something. It's like he's not even moving. He's just sliding around all the places. He's punching through walls, and he's popping up and down, and he's defying gravity, and his head rams through the ceiling.
It's crazy.
Well, what do you call that? Rational?
There's just all kinds of completely ridiculous, stupid stuff that completely takes you out of any kind of tension to kill. This kill is made to make you laugh. You know, killing a movie shouldn't only be making you laugh on purpose, but this one is completely doing it, and it's ridiculous. I can't even describe to you how awful this is. And like I said, Freddy's just dropping one-liners. It's even like, it's funny because the humor he's using is like gamer humor, like beat my high score.
What do you know? I beat my high score.
That was old even at that time. No one cares about scores then. I mean, come on. It's just so awful and ridiculous. And it's bad because this is where you see Freddy's face really well, and it shows you how bad the makeup is in this one. It looks just horrendous. Like 5. Looks terrible. He's too pale, and it just looks fake and phony. But anyway, all right, so 2 down, and basically we're down to the 3 leads. Well, guess what? John Doe went in to try to help save Spencer, and he got what's her name Tracy to knock him out, so he can't wake up either. So while he's in there, Freddy starts messing with him now, because that's just what Freddy does, right? So he's doing one of the familiar falling things. They're always falling. He's always falling in this one. Must be his biggest fear or something. And then like a parachute comes out, and he's floating around, and then Freddy comes down and starts, giving some very, very nice exposition here. And this is where John finds out he's not Freddy's kid.
Do you think I'm your daddy?
And this is basically his work is done for Freddy now, so Freddy actually offs him in the most ludicrous cartoon style. Once again, completely Looney Tunes method imaginable. Yet another insult to the viewer. So, okay. So basically, there's only like 3 people left who are named in this movie, right? So they're formulating ideas. They get the heck out of Dodge. But before they go, Freddy dumps himself into his daughter's body, Maggie's body. And so apparently he can do that now. And she transports him across state lines, as it were. And, a few nightmare sequences later where she starts having her repressed memories come back in the dreams. We find out from Freddy that she's going to be the instrument for him to move around. And he's like, that's where he gives the famous line, every town has an Elm Street.
But this isn't Springwood!
Every town has an Elm Street.
So he messes with Leslie once she gets out. Now, the confusing part here is he gets into Doc's dream. Doc is trying to dream about him. We don't know why or how, but he does. And somehow Freddy goes into the adult's dream. Interesting. And then he gives a little more exposition. Explains that the dream demons, the people who gave him his job, his power, for some reason he feels inclined to tell Doc that.
Because they promised me that. They, the dream people, the ones that gave me this job.
Well, Doc, taking a page straight out of the very first movie, takes a piece of Freddy's sweater with him into the real world and gleans that that's how they're going to beat him. So this sets up the final act of the movie, where lone Maggie goes into the dream to pull Freddy out, which she does pretty easily. There's some really cool scenes right here where she goes into Freddy's mind, though. This is all done in 3D, by the way. I forgot to mention the complete gimmick 3D thing they've tacked onto this movie, and it's awful.
Get inside his brain.
At least looks awful without the 3D glasses. I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't. By this point, I did care about the series when I was that age. But, so yeah. So I forgot to mention they're in the 3D land now. But anyway, 3D land, she goes in there. She's taking a little trip, little meanderings through Freddy's brain. And you see a little bit of what made him him. You know, the kids were heckling him after he smashed a hamster with a hammer. Gee, I don't know why they would do that. And then we see him as, looks like a late teen. The sad thing is the absolute best acting in this entire movie is done by a guy who gets about 30 seconds in this movie, and that's Toby Sexton, who plays Teenage Freddy. Gives a great, nice, chilling line here.
You want to know the secret of pain? If you just stop feeling it, you can start using it.
Because it looks like he's being abused by his stepfather or foster father, whoever that is, but drunken Alice Cooper. Another cameo. There's another cameo there. We also had a cameo by Johnny Depp. That was a PSA about drug use, and that's quite the bit of irony coming from Johnny Depp, but whatever. So, yeah, I like the Teenage Freddy portrayal. It was awesome. He'd have made a good Joker or something. He was really good. But, you know, Freddy kind of figures what's going on, so he meets up with his daughter, and she grabs him, and out into the dream world they go. Now, I'm not going to give you any more of the ending, because, like I said, I don't want to ruin the whole movie for you if you haven't seen it, but suffice it to say, there's a lot of back-and-forth fighting with supposedly real Freddy, who still has some dream powers, apparently, in the real world.
Okay. Maggie, watch out!
Don't try to make sense of it. And I will say that that Maggie turns into the greatest ninja who ever lived in the space of about 10 seconds, as she just begins throwing every edge weapon within the tri-state area at Freddy and pinning him to a wall with it. You know, the coup de grace is delivered via an explosive device.
Finish him!
Happy Father's Day.
Also interesting, giving the animators another chance at some more 3D hijinks here.
Kids.
So, you know, we are left off with the iconic line. There's completely, like, it happened so fast, within like 10 seconds of him dying, and Maggie gets a stupid look on her face and this stupid smile, and she's like, Freddy's dead.
Freddy's dead.
And cut to black, or fade to black, and then cut to credits, right? That's Freddy's dead. Does it sound confusing a little bit, or does it sound very stupid? I don't always describe things well, but this movie is so stupid. This movie is beyond ludicrous and stupid.
That's what I was going to say.
But, all right, before I get too negative on it, let's talk about some pros and cons. Some pros. Okay, now I'm probably going to catch a little bit of flack for this, but I actually enjoyed this movie more than The Dream Child.
What?
It's just more fun to watch. It moves better. It's not nearly as much of a slog. I guess I like the characters better. You didn't get to know them a little bit better, and there was a little bit of camaraderie between them, so there was that. So it was reasonably fun. I would probably actually rather watch this movie than either 2 or 5, because I didn't care for those at all. This is not like a defense of the movie, but I'm just saying it was incredibly stupid, but it was at least somewhat fun to watch, I guess. It just moved along at a pretty brisk pace. It doesn't stay still for any amount of time. It just keeps going. So, it was semi-enjoyable to watch, right? Shut your brain off, that kind of enjoyable. Some of the effects look decent. The 3D looks completely horrendous, but that's to be expected.
Guess so.
But some of the practical effects don't look too bad. Some of the dream sequences are a little bit interesting visually. Nothing like the previous ones, but they're not horrible. You do get the boiler room back, which is always nice. It just works with Freddy. The video game sequence, though, rough stuff. But like, I like the airplane sequence at the beginning, and some of the flying house stuff was kind of cool. You know, it was oft repeated. So, other pros. They got a little more of the original soundtrack. Brian May did the composition for the movie, for the soundtrack, and so the original theme is woven through the movie fairly regularly, which is a very nice touch because it needs it. That music is so iconic; it should be all throughout every Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I don't care which one it is. More pros. Lisa Zane's easy on the eyes. I mean, I can't think of too much else. I didn't mind Carlos's character too much. I thought he was kind of pretty affable. And while the 3, I didn't care for them really. They did seem to have some decent chemistry and camaraderie. Like they'd actually lived together for a while in this home. And they were all antagonistic against each other, right? And they were all obviously out for themselves. But there was a little bit of the close knit there, which I kind of dug that. Being a little bit generous, but there you go. They tried something different. Oh, and it was very nice to see some of what made Freddy Freddy. You know, it was kind of cool to see some of his backstory. Came out of left field, but it was kind of cool to see. So I can't think of any other pros for this movie. That's probably more than it should get. But let's get into some cons, shall we? Oh boy. The first con is this movie was made.
I can feel your anger.
This movie is a complete cash grab. They knew that their property was floundering. They just put out one more quick buck cash grab movie, and this movie is that. It's a complete insult to fans of the series. The people involved in this, Bob Shea, Talele, they know what the fans of the series want, and they could give it to them, but they didn't. They could have sent off Freddy with an amazing movie. A real bang, It didn't have to be Wes Craven directing and writing it. There were some ideas on the table that were good. But they gave us this. Oh, it's just awful. The acting is atrocious from everybody.
Oh, check out this knife.
There's no one, I guess Yaphet Kotto's not unbearable to watch. And the Teenage Freddy was pretty good. I don't like anybody else in this movie. As far as acting goes, there's nothing good about it. It's just, there's a lot of weirdness for weirdness' sake. The psychotic adults, they're all supposedly traumatized in the town from losing all the kids. That they're all just going through their lives like they're still kids, ghost kids walking around. It's stupid. Everyone would have left years ago, and they would have burned that city to the ground. But whatever. The dream sequences. Just so stupid, especially the video game one. That one is just unexcusable. It's so lame. It's lame as video game humor. It's lame as a horror movie. Even a self-aware horror movie can kill. It's lame in execution. This brings out the absolute worst aspects of what the Freddy character has devolved into with his constant jokes at this point. And him acting like a 12-year-old. He acts like a giddy 12-year-old here. It's so stupid. He's been shown to be brooding and fairly intelligent in some of the previous ones, but in this one, nope, out the window. And that's him throughout the entire movie, but it's really exemplified in that video game sequence. So the kills are bad in this movie. The story and concept is completely ridiculous. Slashers are not known for the deepest of plots. And this one's they reach for the stars a little too high, but they couldn't figure out how to launch out of orbit. It's so contrived how Freddy is able to leave town and to find some new people to torture and kill. It's completely ridiculous. The concept makes no sense. It's completely unnecessary, and yeah. And then you add in this whole dream demon thing, which is the first we've ever heard of it.
We know what you want.
I want it all!
Of course you do.
Then open up.
And you shall be
forever.
I guess it goes to some explanation of how he got to be where he was, but I like the idea of it just being, unknown. I don't mind not knowing how he got to be a dream stalker,
So they find the most evil, twisted human imaginable. Then they give them the power to cross the line.
Oh, the dream demons. Oh, they're such a lame excuse of throwing 3D at the camera. The 3D. Let's talk about 3D. Awful. They tacked it on. You couldn't even shoot the whole movie in 3D. Just the last 12 or 15 minutes, right? Another gimmick to try to get people into the theaters. Not like 3D was big back then anyway, 1991, for goodness sake. The character of Freddy. Look, I am not going to tell anybody how they make their money. That is between you and your own conscience. I don't know if Robert had made enough money to be comfortable at this point. I'm sure he was between, royalties and appearances and whatever, and just the pay that he was getting from the later movies, right? He should have turned this movie down. He should have read the script and had enough respect for his fans to not do this movie. I can tell by his personality, it seems like this is the kind of thing he would like to play, though, real flamboyant and jokey, because he seems like a trickster, and I hear he's really flipping off set and likes to talk and gesticulate and all that. So I can see him might be enjoying playing it, but man, he should have known that the crowd would not enjoy watching it. And it's really an insult to the fans, the way that this movie portrayed him.
What's with kids today, huh?
Go watch 1 and then watch this one. Just go right from 1 to 6 and see which one people raise their hand for and say they like. It was just an abomination of the character. They had him playing the Wicked Witch of the frickin' West.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too!
In a completely ill-contrived scene. There's so many homage scenes in this movie that's just not even worth mentioning, but there's a lot. He's stupid. It's not even good stupid humor. It's just stupid humor. It's not good stupid humor. It's bad stupid humor. Oh, God. It just falls so completely flat. I can't imagine anyone liking to watch this. Seriously, I'm not even being it's not allegory here to say that I think only a 12-year-old or under would enjoy the humor. Maybe even younger. Because it's just not funny. It's not even adult humor at all. It's just a little bit of ironic humor and just slapstick kind of comedy and joke telling, and it just comes off so bad and flat. I'm talking way too long in this movie that's so bad, so let me try to speed up a little bit. Cons. This movie just sucks. All right, let's just get down to it.
Oh, this sucks on so many levels!
But it was a fun suck, I guess. It's so hard to quantify all that, but let's go ahead and give it a star rating. So if I was going to rate the star from 1 to 5, this movie is a 1-star movie. This movie sucks. This movie is no good. This movie is an insult to any fans of the series. It's an insult to the movie viewer. Caveat: I still enjoyed it better than 2 of the other movies in this series. And that doesn't speak well. What an uneven series this has been so far. Of course, I've seen all these many, many ages ago, but still, it's half good, half completely abominable bad. At least the Friday the 13th, there was a lot of good. Well, actually, it's more there's a few good, a lot of fairly bad, and there was some middle ground. There was plenty of middle ground movies. In fact, I'd say probably the majority of that series was kind of a middle ground kind of franchise. This one is either really good or complete crap. But yeah, if for some reason you want your little kids to watch a horror movie, you can show them this one and they won't be scared. There's nothing at all scary about this movie. So this is a 1-star movie. It's awful. It's hideous. But there's still some enjoyment to be had by watching it. If you're a hardcore fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, you probably want to avoid it. You've already seen it by now. But if not, if you for some reason hasn't seen it, if you want to keep Freddy's scary memory alive, don't even get near this movie. But once again, I bet the cast had a good time making it. I don't know if they had a good time shooting it, but this movie is just so... This is really so bad it's almost good movie, because this movie is just completely ludicrous and awful. Between the acting, the story, and the execution of this movie is just bad. But like I said, I still enjoyed it more than Dream Child and more than Freddy's Revenge, so who am I to know?
Total dick.
And Freddy's Revenge supposedly had the Dark Freddy in it too, right? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, so completely skippable movie in this series, but hey, if you're a masochist like me and like to be completionist, go for it. So yeah, that is Nightmare on Elm Street, basically part 6, Freddy's Dead. So I'm finally out of the sequel realm, and I will be getting into New Nightmare next. So that's a much different animal than a lot of that has preceded it. So I can't wait to get into that and re-review it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, but I'm losing breath, and I was kind of internally laughing and seething all at the same time. It's very exhausting. So anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more review content here in the near future, because, you know, if I can review it, I will do it. Make sure to throw a comment down below. Join the Gene Bank. I love to listen and comment to everybody who has a courtesy to leave something there. Stay tuned for more reviews in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. There's only a few more to go. Hopefully up, and I know it is up. So anyway, this is Genome. Just thankful he doesn't have to watch these in the future anymore. Out.
Nice hearing from you.